Hi, everybody, and welcome to this very short presentation about 4 key marketing and management principles that we teach at the Business Growth Bootcamp for achieving rapid business growth, rapid revenue growth in your business. My name is Tom Tubergen, and I'm your host for today's short webinar. It's going to be about 15, maybe 17 minutes long, and it's about the specific business success concepts that we teach. Some of my credentials from the past 30 years or so is that I do have a graduate degree in marketing. I have specialized primarily in marketing of high technology software type products. I've done a lot of postgraduate work in software engineering, including artificial intelligence, and probably one of the capstones of my career was I had designed and developed an artificial software intelligence software package, maybe 15 years ago, whatever, roughly 15, 20 years ago. And it was designed to help large Fortune 500 companies standardize their quality control procedures from one manufacturing facility to another. And the interesting thing was that in 2003, right after the space shuttle blew up, NASA ended up buying a whole bunch of these software products to help them kind of get back on track with their space shuttle program after that disaster. So that was a pretty interesting project to work on. 2 particular outcomes that I wanted to have from this abbreviated webinar. The first is there's actually a mathematical formula that describes exactly how to achieve dramatic growth in any organization, believe it or not. And the second thing is, if you want to do anything proactive with your business, you're going to need help. And I'm going to talk to you about how you're going to get the help that you're going to need to have when you need to have it. So 2 points, mathematical formula to achieve the dramatic growth, and we'll talk briefly at the end of our webinar about how to get the help you need, being able to work with us, that type of thing. We found that there's 4 obstacles to rapid revenue growth throughout our career, throughout the boot camp. The first is there's a guy by the name of Michael Porter that is or was a professor at the Harvard School of Business. And one of his primary theories was that there's a reason why entrepreneurial companies seem to plateau at the $5 million revenue range. And what he found was, after doing a lot of research, what he found was that entrepreneurs by nature are very much micromanagers. They tend to be the only person that they'll allow to push the button. They won't delegate. And what the outcome is that by the time they reach $5 million in annual revenue, they don't have the mind share to handle any additional tasks or duties or projects or anything, and they start deflecting and diverting all of this stuff into oblivion, and therefore they kind of hit $5 million or $6 million or whatever the case is, and they just kind of like, that's it, that's all there is, no more. The second obstacle is the lack of knowledge that you need to have to maximize the productivity of your current workforce. There's studies out there that show that there's a lot of room for you to take your workforce and provide them with team building and organizational culture type stuff, leadership type stuff that will pretty dramatically improve the output that you're getting from your workforce. And that's kind of important with today's economy and being able to find good team members to hire and to keep them working for you instead of leaving to go work someplace else. The third point here is implementing business systems and processes that create sort of an intrinsic value. They take your business and almost give it a life of its own, sort of a soul. And this is where the value comes from. What people tend to find out when they go to sell or retire or pass it on to the next generation is that their business really is a collection of office furniture, a couple of trucks, some inventory, and not much more. And if you start developing business processes, business systems, all of a sudden things become scalable. Things get done. You leave on vacation for a week and nobody's missed you, kind of a thing. And they're just cranking out the product, they're cranking out the services, and you're cashing the checks and bringing the money to the bank. The fourth obstacle to rapid revenue growth has been managing finances during periods of high revenue growth. Tends to be a very high risk activity if you don't know what you're doing. And one of the things that I've told people is that putting your business in a high growth mode is much more dangerous to your finances than sitting there in a quiet, empty, dark office and the phone's not ringing. At least that way you're able to hang on for another day. You're able to come back tomorrow and do things. But if you're in a high growth mode and people are starting to complain, they're not getting the products and services delivered in the way that they had expected, you're spending more money going out to support the business than what is currently coming in. It all creates the recipe for a perfect storm, a perfect disaster for you. So you need to be careful about that. So those are 4 key obstacles that we work with in our boot camp to help our boot camp members to keep their business, their ship of commerce, pointed into the wind. And one of the things that that I have frequently here is marketing is just sort of one of those black art kind of projects. Marketing is just one of those black arts. And like I said a few moments ago, there's actually a mathematical formula that will very precisely prescribe how to force your business to the next level. And you probably already saw it flip by there by accident. But here it is. L times C times M times F equals your gross profit. And if you want to write that down, that's the holy grail of this whole boot camp. Take it and run with it, make lots of money. So, but anyway, short of that, let me take a few more minutes and I'll explain exactly what this formula is all about. L represents the number of leads, the number of inquiries, the number of times your phone rings with potential new clients in a given week, in a given time period, like a month or a quarter or whatever you want to use. C represents the number of active customers that you have at any given point in time. The conventional wisdom here is that in order to double your business, you need to double the number of customers you have. And in a few minutes, we're going to work through some examples and I'll show you exactly how wrong that is and how powerful this formula can be if you apply it in the right way. M represents your margin. The price of the revenue that you got coming in minus your expenses equals your gross margin. The financial people will look at this and they'll say, margin means I got to cut costs, I got to cut costs, I got to cut costs. A marketing guy will look at that and say, margin, there's different things that I can do. There's different strategies that I can take to add more value to the products and the services I'm sending out the door that would allow me to charge my customers even more money, and they would be happy to pay it. F stands for purchase frequency, and frequency, probably the most perfect example that you and I could all relate to is the example of a dentist. You go see a dentist twice a year, and unless you have a scenario where you need extra work done, like a wisdom tooth pulled or extracted, or you might want to do some teeth whitening, or you need some cavities filled, whatever. Then you start seeing them for the 3rd time and the 4th time during that year. And I can tell you that's where they start to make their money. So, like I said a moment ago, the conventional wisdom is that in order to grow your business, you need more customers. Well, that may or may not be true. But what I'm going to show you here in a few minutes is that if you took each one of these four variables, the number of leads you're capturing in a time period, you increase the number of active customers you're working with on any given day, you increase your margin by a few percent, you increase that purchase frequency by giving your existing clients new reasons to come back a little more often, you'll see very explosive growth rates on your gross profit. And on the next slide, we're going to actually take some time and go through that. You know, you hear very often these stories in the Wall Street Journal and, you know, the big business media about big companies buying other big companies. And there's a method to the madness of what these CEOs are doing with those buyouts. And this formula describes it exactly. They're not necessarily looking at just doubling the number of customers they've got, but when they start looking at the number of new customers they can capture through increased inquiries and sales and that kind of thing, they look at the number of customers that they can add to their customer list, the margins, the extra value. All of a sudden, they're looking at this and they're saying, you know, if I increased each one of these four variables on the left side of this algebra equation by, say, a few percent, the growth rate goes off the chart. So that's what we're going to look at. Next slide, we're going to have a few examples. So first example here, and let's assume that right now, as of today, you take that formula and say, well, in a given time period, I'm getting 10 leads on average. I have 50 active customers at any given time, and I'm making about $100 profit for every transaction that I do, and each customer buys once a year. This is going to generate roughly $50,000 gross profit. So this is sort of a baseline. Let's just pretend that's what you're doing right now. So if we take that, we're going to plug in some numbers and let's see what happens. I'm going to give you examples. Small incremental changes to that baseline performance really add up big very quickly. So for example, let's keep the number of inquiries the same, but we're going to bump up our customers by, say, 10%. Let's just say that next year we're going to spend some time, we're going to bump it from 50 to 55 customers that we have active at any given moment. And we're going to do a very small increase on the margin. So we may do a combination of cutting a few costs, but we may add a few things into our sales bag of tricks that allow us to charge a little more money. Maybe we just bump the price rate, bump up the prices a little bit. But anyway, we'll take it from maybe $100 average per transaction to $105 per transaction. And we'll leave the purchase rate at the same. Look what it does to your gross profit. It's almost a 15% increase in your gross profit, your revenue. So let's get just a little bit more optimistic. What happens if we start bumping a few of these things up a little bit? Let's say we, instead of doing 10 leads in that given time period, let's say we commit to getting 11. Let's bump it up by 10%. Let's bump let's keep the customer target about the same. We'll improve that by 10% from what we had before, from 50 to 55 active customers any given time. We'll do the same with a margin. We'll go from $100 to $105 per transaction, but let's also tweak that frequency to 1.5 purchases per year from the 1. Look how explosive that gets with your gross profit. It's a 90% increase in your money. And we're talking small incremental changes to each of those four variables. We're not doubling your customers. We're not doubling the amount of leads. We're just taking incremental changes on each one of these things. That's the key concept here. Nothing wild and crazy, just key incremental changes to each of the getting more leads, having more active customers, bumping up your margin a little bit, and doing a few little things that we can do to actually get your customers to buy from you a little more frequently. So anyway, you can see where a $50,000 gross profit currently almost doubles just by tweaking each of these small variables. But what would happen if I stopped by, you called me up and say, hey, Tom, stop by my office. I want you to give me a realistic proposal. What can we do? What would be an expected outcome? And I would say, okay, if you really want to get serious about this, I would look at doubling your leads. I would look at probably doubling your customers, taking your margin from $100 per transaction to $120 per transaction, and maybe from a purchase frequency from 1 time a year to say 1.5 times a year. In other words, they'll buy 3 times in 2 years. The impact of this is almost exponential. It goes from $50,000 gross profit to $360,000 gross profit. And again, the thing I want to stress here is we're not looking at wild and crazy changes to these leads, to customers, to managing your margins, your finances. What we're talking about is just small incremental changes, but the key is the persistence to keep your eye on that stuff and keep moving that ball in the right direction. Huge potential at generating more and more profit off of your business just by watching and spending literally 10 or 15 minutes a day managing the leads, managing customers, and your margin. So that is really kind of the heart of the key concepts for the marketing and the management portion of the Business Growth Bootcamp. We have 2 other instructors who have also created videos or created webinars for you about the organizational culture and leadership and team building. There's another video that's been created about small business financial management concepts. But right now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what the bootcamp is. What does it mean for you? So the Business Growth Bootcamp curriculum, yeah, try saying that fast, 3-4 times. There's 3 primary legs to our curriculum: marketing and revenue growth strategy, marketing and management, organizational culture, team building, strategy and tactics, and small business financial management techniques. There's 3 legs that are critical towards keeping your ship of commerce pointed into the wind and making waves as you generate more and more revenue and scale this thing up and really work on taking it to the next level. So what problems are we seeking to solve? There's almost a complete absence of here's how you do it. One of the things that we've been very aware of is that you go to these industry conventions or whatever once a year, and you sit in these workshops that are an hour long, and some guy that's got a business in the industry stands up and he says, here's how we turned our business into a world-class competitor in 45 days. And you're busy writing down notes and it all looks really good. And then you get back to the shop and you sit down with your notes and you go, yeah, but I got this problem, I've got that. How I don't understand how I do that. So we give you a way around that. We not only show you what you need to do, but we actually have the boot camp constructed in a way that we take you by the hand and say, here's how you do it. The other thing here is don't get stuck. It's really easy to get bogged down and not delegate and get stuck at this plateau. We help with that. We take you by the hand, we give you the advice. We realize that some of the things that we're teaching you will take you outside your comfort zone, but we are all about helping you get to that next level. Creating value, we give you the skills to create processes and procedures in your business that are repeatable and they're scalable. They'll take you from where you are now and delegate responsibility for each step on those process maps or procedure maps and get the output that you need to have. Shifting from reactive problem solving to a proactive opportunity capturing management style. You know, so many people, in fact, just about everybody, they just go to work every day to solve problems. And being proactive, capturing new opportunities that may go floating past, just they don't have time for it because they're so busy solving today's problems. So anyway, here's what we're doing with our boot camp. It's a custom workshop style curriculum that's heavily focused, hugely focused on implementing solutions to problems. And this is a curriculum that we have developed between the three of us, the three instructors, the three coaches, that's focused on the three legs of marketing and leadership development and finances. And that's what we teach throughout the 6-month course. So there's a monthly in-person group meeting that meets for a full morning once a month with working sessions on the finance, on the marketing, and the leadership. And then between each of those monthly group meetings, we have an interim video conference call that we use to answer questions. We discuss some of the challenges, some of the obstacles, some of the pushback that you're getting, and we have kind of a peer review to help you kind of get past some of the things that are hanging you up. Other people had experience with that. Here's how we did it. Here's how you shouldn't do it. So that's been an important part of our boot camp. And then probably one of the more valuable parts of this whole boot camp is that each of the coaches dedicates 1 hour per month of private one-on-one consulting time with each boot camp participant. So that alone is pretty valuable stuff. And we've gotten great feedback on that. So after graduation, one of the more important points of our boot camp value proposition is that there are exclusive quarterly private alumni meetings and quote unquote reunions. Provides accountability to stay on course so that this stuff doesn't gradually sort of drift off into the fog and we're just kind of back to the same old way of doing things. Keeping you accountable to stay on the course, to keep you pointed towards the goals you're trying to achieve. Staying up to date with new opportunities and technology. An excuse to have good time with people with shared interests. They're business owners. They want to grow their business, but they also want to have fun. But most importantly, the boot camp helps you to step confidently outside your comfort zone. It helps you to minimize your risk during periods of very rapid change and growth in your business. So, is the boot camp right for you? What's important is that we do want to keep the group at the right size. We have gotten very much the impression that there's sort of a right size to this group where you don't feel overwhelmed by a huge crowd of people, but yet there's enough people that's in this group that you get to know each of the other people. You get to a point you can call them up and ask them questions, compare notes, that sort of thing. We also are very concerned about having the right type of businesses participating. Restaurants may not necessarily be an appropriate boot camp participant. People who manufacture stuff, people who deliver services like dentists or plumbers or electricians, this would do fabulously for those types of businesses. We're trying to avoid competitors in the same group. You know, you hear the phrase, what happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. Well, what happens in this boot camp needs to stay in this boot camp. And people, because of the nature of what we're doing, it's important that people aren't taking advantage of other participants. So we do work to avoid competitors in the same boot camp group. And you might have a whole lot more questions. So wanted to invite you to take an opportunity right now to schedule an appointment with one of our boot camp coaches. All three of us are willing to take your phone call. We're willing to allocate some time to talk to you about the boot camp and how this might help you. We can help you set some sort of expectations on what the outcome of this boot camp might be for you and for your business. You can discuss how the boot camp has helped other CEOs and business owners that have already completed a boot camp, and get some really clear ideas, clear expectations of how this boot camp can help you in your business. So there's a number of links that are on your screen. They're on the presentation here, or they're located off to the side. You can click on that link and it'll take you to a landing page where you can actually get a phone number to call one of us on evenings or a weekend kind of a thing, or you can send us an email and say, hey, guys, I'd like to hear from you about some of the marketing stuff we're doing, or some of the financial management or even team building type stuff. So take advantage of the opportunity. We're here to help you. We're passionate about what we do, and we'd love to hear from you. So thanks for watching. We really hope to hear from you soon. Thanks.